Hey guys, tonight we wander into a place untouched by sorrow, where the soil still remembers the warmth of God's footsteps, and the breeze carries voices older than Scripture. You're not reading about Eden, you're stepping inside it. This is the garden before shame, before exile, before fig leaves and flaming swords. It's quiet but not empty. Something divine stirs the air like music you almost recognize. You can smell the sweetness of untouched fruit, feel the thick golden air that glows instead of burns. And there, just beyond the shimmer, you notice you're not alone. You probably won't survive this kind of peace, unless you've got wings or a direct line to the Almighty. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments, where are you listening from and what time is it there? Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You arrive in Eden, not with a flash, but a breath. Like you've always belonged here. Your bare feet touch grass that feels impossibly cool, like velvet soaked in moonlight. The garden hums softly its song older than any hymn. The sky above glows faintly pink with gold threaded like silk across it. There's no sun yet, everything glows as if lit from within. The trees sway not because of wind, but because they're listening. And then you hear it footsteps, slow, unhurried, assured. They don't break the silence, they complete it. You turn and there he is, Jesus walking through Eden. His robe moving like water. His eyes not looking at the path, but ahead into something beyond what you can see. His expression is quiet joy, the kind that only comes from walking in a place where nothing is broken. He doesn't notice you at first, or maybe he does but pretends not to. Instead, he approaches a tree, not the tree of life, not the one of knowledge either. Just a tree. An ordinary one, if there could be such a thing in Eden. He places his hand gently on its trunk. The bark shimmers like wet stone in moonlight, and the tree itself straightens as if honored. Behind him, another figure approaches, God the Father, but not in thunder or burning bush. No booming voice, just presence. It doesn't hit you like lightning, it settles on you like peace so dense it becomes gravity. If joy had mass, this would be it. The two embrace not like ancient forces colliding, but like family reunited after a long trip. And you realize something staggering. This isn't the first time they've walked here. This meeting is not new, it's a return. God speaks, and his voice isn't heard, it's felt. Like warmth spreading from your chest outward. You don't catch all the words, only the weight of them. But Jesus laughs, a gentle childlike laugh. And that laugh echoes through Eden, stirring flowers into bloom as if on cue. You begin to notice more. The grass around their feet flattens respectfully. A bird overhead halts mid-flight, not falling, but hovering as though heaven itself pauses to watch. You are a guest at a meeting that predates time, yet you've been welcomed like family. Jesus speaks now, and you hear him clearly. He's telling a story about when Eden was first imagined. He says, before any tree stood here, before any fruit sweetened the air, we walked the blueprint together. And God replies with a chuckle that sounds like wind in branches. And you insisted the soil should smell like rain. They both laugh again. It's strange how casually divine they are. No rituals, no altars, just love as natural as breath. And then you feel it, the garden responding. As Jesus steps forward, flowers bloom in his footprints. The petals shimmer in colors that don't exist anywhere else. Not red, not blue, something deeper. Edenic hues, the kind that don't fade in memory because they're tied to eternity. A soft rustle behind you catches your attention. A deer, no, not quite. More elegant, almost celestial, steps forward and kneels before Jesus. He brushes its fur and says gently, "You remember me." And the creature nods. It's not just the plants and rivers and stars that remember him. Eden remembers, and so do you. Some theologians believe Eden is not just a place, but a realm outside linear time, where all things God cherishes are preserved in living memory. Others argue Eden is a dimension folded into our own, glimpsed only in moments of absolute peace, like a dream that fades upon waking. But here none of that matters, because you're in it. Jesus sits beneath the tree, now resting against its luminous bark. God sits beside him. They don't speak anymore, they just watch the garden, as if watching a child sleep. A gentle breeze picks up swirling, tiny glowing seeds into the air. They float around you like fireflies humming in harmony. One lands on your shoulder, and feels like forgiveness. You close your eyes for a moment. When you open them again, Jesus is looking at you. Not surprised, not puzzled, just knowing. He smiles, ready to walk, and without waiting for an answer, he stands. The mist parts like a curtain as you follow him. Jesus the Son, the Word made flesh before flesh was ever formed. His pace is unhurried, yet you feel the sense that every step matters, as though the garden bends subtly to accommodate his path. You walk in silence for a while, but it's not awkward. It's the kind of silence that's so full it speaks louder than words. Around you, Eden stretches endlessly. There are trees so tall you can't see their tops, vines heavy with fruit that pulses faintly, as if alive. The air tastes like honey and cool river water. Your feet leave no prints in the soil, but his do. Only his. They're not dents in the earth, they're echoes. Each footprint glows softly behind him, fading like breath on glass. When you look closer, they aren't made of light. They are light. Shaped like feet, yes, but pulsing with something more ancient, like fragments of morning's first dawn. You wonder if the ground itself is rejoicing. Jesus glances over his shoulder. You see it. He says more observation than question. Eden remembers me. He stops near a stream, though calling it that feels wrong. This water doesn't just flow, it glides, moves like thought. The surface mirrors not just the canopy above, but the sky behind it, stars from realms unseen. Jesus kneels, cups his hands, and draws the water to his lips. And the stream sings. It hums in tones you've never heard, resonating deep in your chest, like a memory that isn't yours. You kneel beside him, and he offers you a handful. You drink, and it's not just cold, it's clarity. Thoughts sharpen, then soften again. Time folds. Suddenly you're aware that this stream has no source and no end. It's always been. Some believe this is the river of life branching out from the throne of God. Others say it was meant to carry Adam's first tears, before the fall interrupted everything. Jesus dips his fingers into it again. This river, he says, quietly knows how to move forward, but it never forgets what it's touched. He flicks a drop of water toward a nearby bush, and the plant blooms instantly, flowers unfolding in sequence like slow applause. Then he stands brushing dew from his palms and continues walking. You follow him into a grove where sunlight somehow filters through thick branches, though no sun can be seen. It's a warm, embracing light, the kind that makes you feel known. In the middle of the grove stands a tree you've never seen before, shorter than the rest, humble. Its bark is silver-threaded, and its fruit is hidden beneath broad, silky leaves. Jesus approaches it like greeting an old friend. He places a hand on its trunk. This tree, he says, was here before the others. You raise an eyebrow. Before the tree of life, you ask, surprised. He nods slowly. This tree came from a conversation, not a command. You're not sure what that means, but before you can ask, he smiles knowingly, as if hearing the question already. I walked with God here, he continues, before time had language. Before beginning even had a place to begin. I walked here in thought and vision, and the garden grew out of that fellowship. It strikes you this is a story no scripture tells, a truth whispered too quietly for parchment. A soft chirping sound draws your attention to a low branch. A bird no larger than your thumb lands near Jesus. Its feathers shimmer with iridescent blues and greens. Without hesitation, it sings 3 perfect notes. Jesus answers with a whistle, and the bird bows its head. You watch mesmerized, then realize that bird wasn't singing for itself, it was announcing him. Even the smallest remembers, Jesus says. The idea that nature holds memory, that creation itself bears witness to its maker, it humbles you. Some believe Paul hinted at this when he wrote about creation groaning awaiting redemption. Others interpret it more symbolically. But here, walking behind the Son of God in Eden symbolism feels too shallow. You come to a ridge that looks over a wide, flowering valley. You gasp. You hadn't noticed how high you'd climbed. The wind rises gently here. It doesn't push, it carries, lifts. Jesus stretches his arms, closes his eyes, and breathes deeply. This breeze, he says, was the first to call me by name. He means it. And suddenly, the wind does sound like a name. Not your language, not any language. Just feeling turned into air. You look down again and notice something odd. In all this walking, in all this beauty, he has cast no shadow. Neither have you. There's no darkness here, not even a suggestion of it. Light exists in every direction, above, around, within. It doesn't shine on you. It radiates with you. The trees don't block it. The hills don't break it. It's as if Eden doesn't recognize the idea of blocking anything holy. Jesus kneels again, tracing a circle in the grass with his finger. As he moves, the blades shift color from green to gold, then to a strange, soft blue. He hums a tune low and steady like a lullaby written before lullabies had reason. You catch only fragments of the melody, but your soul leans toward it as though hearing home. Ready to see what the animals still remember? He asks, rising again. And without waiting for a reply, he descends into the valley below. You step into the valley, and it's as if the land holds its breath. The flowers, tall and luminous, lean inward toward Jesus, not just bending, but listening. Every petal seems to angle toward his footsteps, like instruments tuning themselves to a maestro's return. Then the rustling begins. At first, it sounds like wind again. But soon you notice a rhythm. It's more deliberate, like soft footsteps in tall grass. You pause, scanning the tree line that hugs the valley's far edge. Something stirs. No many things. They come forward slowly, not in fear, but reverence. Creatures. Dozens of them. Some you recognize: lions with manes like golden fire antelope with emerald glass eyes, peacocks whose feathers ripple with moving constellations. Others you can't name. A beast with wings but no beak. A feline taller than a man, yet it moves like water. Every species steps silently into the clearing, forming a wide, respectful circle around Jesus. And they bow. It's not choreographed, it's not commanded, it's memory. Jesus crouches, extending his arms. A massive white bear steps forward, presses its snout into his palm like a child into a mother's side. He chuckles warmly, scratching behind its ears. This one, he says softly, used to follow me everywhere. You blink. Before creation, he adds, we spoke often in dreams. You want to laugh or cry or both. This is absurd. This is sacred. This is real. One by one, the animals move forward. Some nuzzle his robe. Others simply sit near him in silent affection. A pair of hawks perch on a low branch above his head, not circling, not hunting, just watching. You realize they're guarding him, not from danger, but from forgetting. Eden remembers me, he says again, glancing at you. But they remember too every whisper I gave before words took form. Some theologians insist that animals were only granted breath, not soul. Others argue that pre-fall creation was filled with a harmony lost to sin's rupture, a symphony of awareness that once included every beast, bird, and creeping thing. Here, though, it's undeniable. They know him. He steps aside and lets you approach. A small creature you don't recognize, a rabbit with fur like translucent crystal, comes close and sits at your feet. Its eyes blink slowly, peacefully, as if you too are part of what it has waited to see. Jesus speaks gently. They aren't surprised to see you. You look at him puzzled. They remember the breath that made you, he explains. Same breath, same voice. You're not a stranger here. It hits you like a wave. This isn't just a moment in Eden, it's a moment outside of everything. A sliver of eternal memory cracked open just wide enough to let you slip in. Jesus walks to the edge of a pool, its surface glassy, its depths unclear. The animals follow at a respectful distance. He leans over it, gazing into the water. You follow. There's no reflection. Not of him, not of you. Instead, the pool shows something else. It shows Adam naming animals, one by one with joy and wonder. The scene is vivid, his laughter as a toucan lands on his head, the solemn care with which he chooses a name for a long-necked creature. The animals gathered then are the same ones here now. The connection feels electric. They remember the names he gave them, Jesus says, and they remember who taught him how to listen. He closes his eyes. The water ripples. The vision fades. The animals begin to stir. Some nuzzle him once more. Others look directly into your eyes as if sharing something without needing words. A lion walks past you, slow and deliberate, its golden eyes holding a calm older than fear. As it passes, your body warms slightly, like walking past a sunbeam that chose you. Jesus speaks again, voice hushed. In the beginning, they didn't fear man. They walked beside you. They still would if only the world remembered Eden. You glance at the animals now, beginning to retreat slowly into the trees. They do not vanish. They withdraw as if understanding that this moment was always meant to be brief. Why don't they speak, you ask softly? They do, he replies, but only in places where sin has no echo. Some scholars believe that Eden was never meant to be guarded by flaming sword alone, but by memory itself, by creatures and earth and time, all bound together in reverence of the holy. You think of Noah, of Daniel, of the lion's den, and now watching this holy exodus of beasts and birds, it clicks into place. They never forgot who who walked here first. Jesus reaches for a low-hanging branch, picks a small fruit round and pale glowing faintly, and hands it to you. Take it, he says. Don't eat, just hold it. You obey. It's heavier than it looks. Not weighty like stone, weighty like meaning. Like something filled with stories yet to be told. You glance down, then back up. He's already walking again. Come on, he says with a smile. We've got more to remember. You follow him again, fruit still cupped in your hands. Its warmth seeps into your skin, not heat, but a subtle pulse. Like it's alive with memory. You don't dare look away from it for too long, afraid it might fade or worse change. But when you glance back up, Jesus is already weaving through low branches, his robe brushing against leaves that shimmer like starlight caught in silk. He speaks without turning. This fruit was never meant to be eaten, he says. Not by Adam, not by angels, only held. It teaches by presence. You want to ask what it teaches, but instead you feel it. Somehow simply holding it makes your thoughts quieter. Like all your questions are now sitting in a long line waiting their turn. None demanding answers, just content to wait. He stops suddenly in a small clearing. At the center stands a single tree different than the others. Not grand, not towering. Its trunk is twisted, ancient, but thin. Its leaves are narrow, silvery, and they make a soft, chiming sound as the breeze moves through them, like 1,000 tiny prayers being whispered all at once. Jesus places his hand gently on the bark. This is where Father and I spoke about choice. You hesitate. The tree? He nods. Before Eden had boundaries, before Adam had breath. This tree stood in the thought of God. It heard what would come before anything was. You step closer and feel it too. Something deep in the roots humming low and slow like a song too old to remember, but too sacred to forget. You said this fruit teaches, you say, but this tree listens. Yes, he replies, but not to you. It listens to him. You glance around. No sign of animals now. No sky above, just a dome of branches gently swaying. You feel as if you've entered a sanctuary built not of stone, but intention. Then Jesus sits cross-legged at the base of the tree. He pats the ground beside him, and you follow. This, he says, is where the first questions were asked, before Satan's lie, before Eve's wonder. Here is where I asked my Father. He pauses. You lean in, breath held. If love could exist without choice. The words ripple through you. He doesn't speak them loudly, but they echo in your bones. That's the question, the tree answered, he continues. That's why the other two were planted life and knowledge. They had to exist together or not at all. You sit in silence beside him, fruit still resting in your palms. Suddenly it feels heavier, like it's absorbing your thoughts. Some theologians have long debated the necessity of the tree of knowledge. Why would God place temptation in a perfect world? Others suggest it was not temptation but permission. Not a trap, but a trust. Jesus smiles softly, sensing your thoughts. It was always trust, he says. Always a risk on purpose. Love without freedom isn't love. You glance back at the strange fruit he handed you earlier. Is this from that tree? No. He answers gently. That fruit no longer grows. What you hold is from something planted after. You tilt your head. After what? He looks upward through the canopy, eyes distant. After grief entered the garden. After a certain step was taken. After a tear touched the soil. He places a finger to the ground. Right here. You feel it. A warmth in the soil. A memory that isn't yours but is still familiar. A sorrow that doesn't ache but teaches. The kind of sadness that refines, not ruins. The leaves above you rustle louder now, not wind, words. You can almost hear them, but they're not in your language, not even in sound. They arrive directly into your heart. I see you, they say. I knew you would come. The tree remembers you, and you wonder, have you been here before? Jesus watches you carefully, his eyes kind. Not in flesh, he says, answering your thought. But your spirit has always leaned toward the garden. He rises slowly. The ground beneath him pulses faintly like soil acknowledging its maker. Ready. You nod, though you're not sure where you're going next. As you stand, you glance back at the twisted tree. Its leaves chime once more, just as you take your first step away. A farewell, a blessing. Maybe both. Jesus leads you down a narrow path, now one lined with stones that seem to glow faintly as you walk over them. Each step feels like crossing into something deeper, not just Eden, but something beneath it. A layer of reality, more sacred than the one before. Where are we going, you ask softly. He answers without looking back to the river that remembers my voice. The path narrows, the trees arching above, like cathedral vaults, their branches interlaced with vines that shimmer with dew. Each droplet reflects not just the forest, but a sky you haven't seen, one filled with stars that seem to breathe. The air thickens with peace, dense enough to slow your thoughts, soft enough to cushion every footfall. Jesus walks ahead, arms loose at his sides, his robe brushing against leaves that lean in just slightly as he passes. You realize the trees aren't just alive, they're attentive. Every part of this garden seems to recognize him, not as visitor, but as origin. You pass under an arch made entirely of flowering branches, deep purple and soft gold. The fragrance is like frankincense, and something sweeter, almost like memory, steeped in honey. Then you hear it, a low hum steady and wide like the voice of water remembering its source. You step into an opening and behold the river. It coils gently through the garden, clear as crystal, reflecting neither sky nor canopy, but something deeper light, that doesn't have a source color, that exists only in emotion. This river doesn't rush, it glides, as if even gravity treats it with reverence. Jesus kneels at its edge and rests his hand just above the surface. The water lifts to meet him, not like a wave, not like a splash, but like a greeting. The water reaches for him. You watch as the river begins to glow faintly around his hand. A pattern forms, circular, rippling outward, not in chaos, but in rhythm, like music made visible. He speaks, this river flowed before Eden had roots, before light knew how to shine. You crouch beside him. What is it? It has no name, you'd know, he answers, smiling, but it listens. And suddenly it does. You feel it. A soft awareness brushing against your skin, not from the water itself, but from what flows within it. Some believe this is the river described in Revelation flowing from the throne of God. Others wonder if Eden's river was split and scattered after the fall, lost in the four heads of Pishon, Gihon, Tigris, and Euphrates. But here and now it is singular, whole, and awake. Jesus trails his fingers along its surface. When I spoke the stars into being, this river carried the sound forward. You glance at the water expecting to see constellations, but instead you see something stranger. Moments. The river shows glimpses, a mountain wrapped in fire, a boy with a sling and a lion's courage, a woman laughing through tears as she touches the hem of his robe. You watch stunned. The river is telling stories not from books but from breath, from what it felt when he walked the earth. It remembers, Jesus says quietly, all of it, even when people forget. He cups his hands again and offers you water. You hesitate. This won't quench thirst, he says, but it will stir what's sleeping. You drink. The moment the water touches your tongue, the world pulls inward. Not in darkness, but in depth. You're falling not down, but through. Through layers of memory, through the quiet parts of your own soul. You see your childhood, but differently, more gently. You see prayers you forgot, you prayed dreams you buried. You see moments you thought were meaningless, suddenly lit with quiet purpose. Then you see him always there. Not imposing, not correcting, just present. You open your eyes, the river still hums, the vision fades, but the awareness lingers like a tune you can't unhear. Jesus rises and looks down at the glowing water. It showed you what it needed to. You nod, unsure how to speak. He smiles. Don't try to explain, just carry it. You glance again at the river's surface, and now for the first time you see your reflection. But it's different. Your eyes seem deeper, your posture lighter. You don't look holy. You look held. He continues walking along the bank and you follow. Soon you come to a bend in the river where the current slows even more. There's a stone at the edge, smooth and wide, like a bench shaped by God's own hands. Jesus sits. You sit beside him. He doesn't speak for a while, just watches the river curve and vanish behind trees. Then softly, I once placed my hand in this water and spoke the names of those I would carry. You look at him stunned. He glances over, eyes soft. Yours was among them. You don't know what to say, so you say nothing. The river continues its song, a lullaby for the soul. And for a moment, the garden doesn't feel ancient. It feels eternal, as if nothing has ever left it. Not really. Jesus stands again, brushing dust from his robe. Come, there's something in the soil I want to show you. You rise lighter than before. You follow him once more, your steps now echoing softly with purpose, like the river still sings beneath your feet. You step away from the river, but its song clings to your skin like a remembered embrace. The trees begin to thin as Jesus leads you into an open field, glowing softly in hues you can't quite name, something between sunrise and breath. The air is warm, but not heavy, sweet, but not scented. Everything here exists on the edge of language. He stops in the middle of the clearing and kneels. The soil looks ordinary, dark, rich, soft, but when he brushes aside a thin layer, it glimmers faintly as if starlight had fallen and buried itself just beneath the surface. Here he says we planted the beginnings of something unseen. You crouch beside him. Seeds. He nods. Not of plants of glory. Fragments of light that would one day become the stories no one believes, the miracles no one expected. He reaches into the soil and lifts a single speck of something so small, you almost miss it. But then it shimmers. Not gold, not silver, something beyond. It pulses in rhythm with your breath. This one, he says, became the whisper in Moses' heart long before the bush ever burned. You blink. So, these are memories or prophecies? Jesus smiles. Yes. You laugh a little. That's not an answer. He laughs too. It's the only one that fits. He gestures for you to touch the soil. As your fingers press gently into the warm earth, you feel not dirt, but stories. Not told in words, but in textures, rhythms, echoes. One beat thuds like the footsteps of a child on temple stone. Another hums like quiet singing in a prison cell. Another still feels like grief held tightly until it turned into praise. You pull back, eyes wide. They're all here. Every faith-fueled step, Jesus says, starts from this soil. Some ancient writings, not quite canon, but certainly old, suggest that Eden's ground was more than earth. That it was spirit-infused matter, a place where intention and substance blurred. Some theologians dismissed this as poetic nonsense. Others whispered it was dangerous knowledge. Here now, kneeling in it, you know it simply as true. Jesus gathers a handful and lets it sift slowly through his fingers. As it falls, each grain flashes with color, like tiny lanterns extinguishing as they touch the ground. You know, he says, people often think Eden was just the beginning. But this garden, it reaches forward too. You tilt your head, forward. To futures no one dares dream. To victories not yet sung. This soil remembers what hasn't happened yet. That thought stirs something strange inside you, hope mixed with awe. A future remembered by a past you're still trying to understand. Jesus rises and walks a little farther, stopping near a wide stone that juts just slightly from the ground. He touches it. A low vibration thrums through your feet. Want to see something buried a little deeper, he asks. You nod, unsure. With a gentle gesture, he causes the stone to part, not crack, not crumble, just open. And within it is a pocket of darkness. Not frightening, not cold, just waiting. Inside, nestled like a pearl in velvet, is another shimmer. Bigger this time, less like a speck, more like a shard, a sliver of something vast. This, Jesus says softly, was planted on the day David was born. You lean in, the shard pulses slowly like a heartbeat. And it grew every time he sang alone to the sky, he continues. Every time he chose mercy over revenge, every time he fell and rose. You watch the light flicker and you swear for a moment you hear harp strings in the distance, a melody hidden inside memory. You ask, do all of us have these? Jesus' gaze meets yours. Some shine brighter, some are still buried deep. But yes, you have one too. He doesn't tell you where, not yet. But the thought that something of you glows in Eden's soil that you were thought of, planned for, before breath ever reached your lungs, it sits with you like a secret only heaven would whisper. He closes the stone with a touch. It seals without sound, like it had never opened. The field quiets again. You said these weren't for plants, you say, looking around. So why plant them? To root eternity into the earth, he replies. So when heaven touches down again, it knows where to stand. You look back at the soil now, no longer seeing dirt, but destiny. He begins walking again, this time, slowly, thoughtfully. Come, I want to show you what else grew from this ground. And as you follow him, you feel something underneath your feet, like threads of light reaching upward, wrapping gently around your steps. Not trapping, just anchoring. You realize you are part of something planted too. You walk in silence, but it's the good kind, the kind that grows between trust and wonder. The field gives way to a grove, and the grove to a gentle rise, each step lifting you higher, but never tiring you. Jesus walks just ahead, one hand occasionally brushing a branch, his fingers trailing light where they pass. The garden doesn't just follow him, it reacts like an orchestra cued by the simple motion of his presence. Then the wind shifts. You stop. It's not just a breeze now, it has direction, texture, tone, and a name. Jesus closes his eyes and smiles. You feel it. You nod slowly. What is that? He turns to you, his voice barely louder than the wind itself. That's the first breath. The one that carried my name before any word was spoken. The wind wraps around you like silk. It doesn't push, it doesn't swirl, it dances. You can hear it speaking, but not in syllables in memory. It brushes against your skin like something familiar, something that once knew you when you were still only an idea in the mind of God. It lifts Jesus' hair gently, runs across his shoulders like an old friend leaning in close. In Eden, he says the wind wasn't weather, it was a voice. You close your eyes, and now with all distractions stripped away, you hear it too. Not in your ears, in your bones. The wind is saying his name, over and over, but not with sound, with recognition. The way a child says home without speaking. The way the stars might hum their positions into place each night. Some believe the Spirit of God in Genesis, the Ruach Elohim, was this very breath. Not wind, not air, but living presence. Others believe it was an angelic current, a movement of heaven kissing earth for the first time. But here it feels like both. And more. Jesus steps forward and holds out his arms. The wind responds, instantly circling him like a spiral of light. Leaves lift, flowers lean, and the very air pulses with joy. You laugh because suddenly you realize the wind is happy. It remembers him. It's been waiting a long time, he says gently, lowering his arms. The wind settles again, curling softly around your ankles like a loyal dog returning to rest. Does it always carry your name, you ask? He nods, but not always in ways people hear. Sometimes it whispers through grief, sometimes through silence, but it never forgets the sound. A cluster of tiny white flowers rises nearby, lifted by the wind not grown. They spiral in the air and float toward you. One lands on your shoulder and stays. That one likes you, he teases, grinning. You laugh again, laughter that feels like it's been buried in you for years now, finally loosed by Eden's breeze. Jesus walks on and you follow deeper into the grove. Soon you come to a clearing where the wind has carved small patterns into the grass. Swirls, circles, spirals like ancient script without a language. What are these, you ask? Jesus kneels and runs his fingers through one of the spirals. When Adam first heard the wind, he responded with joy. He danced here, laughed, sang nonsense words that made even the trees sway. He glances up at you, the wind replied. The patterns, he explains, are remnants of that moment left behind like fingerprints on Eden's skin. You look again and see them not as marks, but as music paused mid-measure. You sit beside one of the spirals and rest your hand in the center. A warmth rises, not heat, but emotion. You feel seen, the way a child might feel when their name is said with love. You imagine Adam here, feet bare, spinning with delight, wind roaring with affection around him. They were never afraid, Jesus says. Not of me, not of God, not even of the wind. And then he adds quieter, not yet. You feel a shift in his tone, a softness, a hint of sorrow like a memory too dear to be bitter. The wind remembers joy, he continues, but it also remembers silence. You pause. After the fall, he nods slowly. When shame entered the garden, the wind searched for them. It called Adam's name. It called hers too. But they didn't answer. Your heart aches for them, for Eden, for the wind. They used to run to the sound, Jesus says. That day, they ran from it. Some theologians suggest Eden mourned the fall, not in thunder or fire, but in the withdrawal of presence. Others imagine angels standing still, waiting for something that wouldn't return. But here you understand something deeper. Eden didn't expel them. It grieved them. Jesus stands again, brushing his hands against his robe. The wind swirls once more gently like a blessing and then stills. He turns to you with a smile tinged in memory. Come. I want to show you where shadows never touch. You rise, the little flower still resting on your shoulder, and walk behind him. And as you go, you feel the wind brush one last time across your back, whispering, not just his name, but maybe yours too. You walk toward a new light, not brighter, not harsher, just cleaner. It moves across the grove like morning mist, hugging every leaf and stone, but without casting a single shadow. You glance down at your feet, expecting some trace of your form beneath you. Nothing. There's no darkness here. Not under the trees, not behind the rocks, not even under Jesus himself. You blink, unsure if it's a trick of the light, but no, it's the absence of division. Jesus walks ahead, and still the ground receives his steps like a memory made new. This is the part of Eden untouched by contrast, he says over his shoulder. No night, no fear, no shadow. You speak softly, not wanting to disturb the clarity. Is it because of the light? He pauses and turns. It's because of the oneness. The air is cool here, not cold, just clear. As if the molecules themselves haven't yet learned to carry sin. Every surface glows with its own quiet flame. The trees have translucent leaves catching light not from above, but from within. The grass doesn't sway, it listens. Jesus kneels at a spot where the soil has parted into a gentle slope. A single vine grows from it, coiled but not chaotic. Its tendrils sparkle faintly like threads of dawn captured in glass. This vine, he says, grew from a promise. You crouch beside him. Which promise? He looks at you, and his gaze is both serious and tender. That there would come a day when shadow would have no place to stand. You touch the vine. It feels warm like skin, not flesh, but alive nonetheless. The promise is in it, not on it. And as you hold one of its leaves, it flashes for a brief second, showing you a scene, a hill across, and the sun refusing to shine. You flinch. Jesus doesn't. It had to happen, he says gently. Shadow had to believe it had won, so that it could be exposed. Some theologians argue that the crucifixion was not just sacrifice, but cosmic confrontation, light invading darkness so fully that it swallowed death from the inside out. Others say the real miracle was not in what was taken away, but in what remained. Jesus stands and points ahead. Walk a little farther, you'll see. You move into a clearing where the ground turns to smooth stone, white flawless, glowing faintly. It curves up into a dome like the inside of a pearl. The light here has no direction, it just is. And you realize your skin glows slightly too, not from the light, but from being in it, not reflected, transformed. Jesus walks to the center and lifts his hand. No words, no drama, just presence. And the dome sings, not loud, not sharp, a single note that vibrates through you like a chord struck deep inside the heart. You don't hear it, you become it. When the sound fades, you feel calmer, as if something had been brushed out of you. A fear you didn't know you carried. A doubt you never named. You didn't notice the weight until it was gone, Jesus says quietly. You nod, breath caught. This is where Adam once stood, he continues, right here, before the fall. He felt it too. The weightlessness of being fully known, fully seen, and not shrinking from it. You stand beside him now, unsure what to do with your hands. Everything feels too sacred to move. Then he points to the edge of the dome where the stone fades into grass again. Step outside the light. You hesitate. Won't that feel wrong? He smiles. You'll see. You take one step past the dome's rim. Nothing jolts, nothing dims, but something shifts. You feel the light become directional again, coming from somewhere rather than everywhere. Shadows return not harshly, but gently. You see your silhouette for the first time since entering Eden, and it's beautiful. Not distorted, not ominous, just honest. A contour that speaks of presence, not loss. Jesus steps beside you. Light that casts no shadow tells you who you are in wholeness. But light that does tells you who you are becoming. You feel tears gather without sadness. Which one is real, you whisper? Both, he replies, and neither. The shadow isn't a curse, it's the invitation to return. Some spiritual teachers call this the grace of becoming the sacred gap between who we are and who we were created to be. Others speak of sanctification like a mountain slowly climbed. But here it's simpler. You see yourself fully with your shadow, and you are not rejected. He reaches out and touches the outline of your silhouette. It vanishes for a moment, not from erasure, but from embrace. Come, he says, gesturing toward a path that glows faintly through the trees. There's fruit here you're not meant to eat, but to understand. And you walk with him again, lighter than before. The path curves gently like a ribbon, unfurling across a table made of light. You follow Jesus beneath trees that arch together above your heads, forming a natural canopy of woven branches and flickering leaves. These leaves don't rustle or fall, they shimmer suspended as if held in conversation with the air. Then you see it. One tree standing taller than all the rest. Its trunk is thick, smooth as marble, yet it seems to breathe with life. The bark pulses with a faint rhythm like a heartbeat too old to measure. And its fruit, round, gleaming, impossibly perfect, hangs low just within reach. Jesus stops a few paces from it. He doesn't touch it. He only looks. You do too. Something inside you stirs. Not temptation, something older. Reverence, maybe. A deep recognition that this tree is more than just a tree. It's the tree. The one you ask quietly. He nods once, the fruit Adam reached for. You take a slow breath. The air here feels heavier, not oppressive, just meaningful. As if every atom remembers what happened. Jesus sits cross-legged on the ground, motioning for you to do the same. You obey, not taking your eyes off the tree. He speaks softly. I stood here with my father before the garden knew the word danger. This tree was always going to be a crossroads. You glance at him. So, you knew. He smiles gently. Of course. Love always allows a door, even when it knows what waits on the other side. The fruit doesn't gleam with menace. It looks innocent, beautiful even. And yet, the garden's silence around it feels different. Still respectful, but cautious. Like even the light doesn't dare touch it directly. Why place it here at all, you ask? Some scholars call it the test, others the first act of free will. But here you want something deeper than theory. Jesus answers slowly, because love without choice is control. And Eden was never a prison, it was a proposal. You sit with that truth, it aches in a tender way. The fruit was never cursed, he continues. It was the knowledge that bruised them, the sudden weight of contrast, good versus evil before they were ready to carry it. He points toward the tree. This fruit teaches, but not the way they expected. It didn't make them gods, it made them aware. You feel it now, that hum of awareness creeping along your skin. Not fear, but fragility. You understand something about humanity here, not that we were broken, but that we tried to carry something too soon. You glance at the fruit again. Did you ever touch it? Jesus shakes his head. I honored the design. I walked with them in freedom, and I walked with them in exile. That stops you. You left Eden too. His eyes meet yours. I never stayed behind. I walked with them through every shadow, even the ones they thought were too dark for me. That single sentence, simple, gentle, hits you harder than thunder. He rises, approaching the tree, but still not touching. He looks up into its branches, eyes glistening. This tree remembers the moment everything tilted, but it also remembers something else. He steps aside, revealing a patch of ground beneath it where a small sapling has grown. Different tree, thinner trunk. A subtle crown of thorns woven through its branches. You gasp. This one, he says, grew from the moment I said yes. You kneel. The sapling doesn't hum like the other trees. It's silent, still, but full of meaning. I took what they ate in fear, Jesus whispers, and turned it into something redeemable. Some believe that the cross was foreshadowed in Eden, that God, even as he walked with Adam and Eve toward exile, already held the answer in his heart. Others argue the sacrifice was born in the fullness of time. But here in this soil, both views fold into one beautiful truth. Redemption was always part of the design. Jesus plucks a leaf from the sapling and places it gently into your palm. It feels soft like velvet, but pulses faintly with strength. Not to eat, he says again, but to remember. You nod, holding it as carefully as a newborn bird. The wind picks up gently swirling fallen petals across your feet. A bird calls out somewhere behind the tree, not an alarm, but like it's announcing something. Come, he says. There's someone I want you to meet. You rise, still holding the leaf. He begins walking again, this time along a narrow flower-lined trail. You follow. And behind you, that tree, once a symbol of sorrow, stands quietly, neither triumphant nor bitter, just waiting. The flower-lined trail feels older than anything you've walked so far, not worn but aware. The petals underfoot don't bruise. They simply make space for your steps, folding gently as you pass. The air is tinged with a fragrance that shifts each time you breathe, wild fig, soft mirror, fresh rain. Something like memory baked in sunlight. Jesus walks just ahead, and though he says nothing, you feel his anticipation. Not urgent but tender, like he's leading you towards someone who matters deeply. Soon the trail opens into a quiet grove, shaded by trees with broad leaves and branches that droop like arms at rest. In the center stands a figure, not angel, not man. You blink. It's an angel, but not like any you've imagined. No armor, no sword, just robes of layered linen and eyes as still as eternity. His wings, 6 of them, fold gently against his back tips, resting like mist on the grass. He stands with hands clasped before him, not in defense, but in reverence. You stop at the grove's edge. Jesus steps forward. He almost refused his task, he says quietly. The angel bows his head. I didn't want to bring sorrow into the world, he replies. His voice is soft thunder, calm, old. You look between them. Jesus turns to you. This is the seraph who delivered the message of exile. Your breath catches. You hadn't thought of that moment from his side. I carried the word the angel says, but it broke me to do it. He steps closer, wings folding tighter. They wept as I spoke, and I wept too, but the message was not mine, only the duty. Some traditions name this angel, or guess at it. Others leave him unnamed, a silent hand in the garden's most sorrowful turning. Here he stands, not as villain, but as witness. Jesus places a hand on his shoulder. He wanted to stay. The angel nods slowly. When they were gone, I walked the garden alone for a time, hoping they would return, hoping he would say, "Let them back in." His voice trembles, but he does not weep. I would have opened the gate again in a breath. The grove is silent. Jesus speaks gently. But the path back couldn't be a reversal. It had to be a redemption. You realize something staggering. Even the angels had to obey in sorrow. Even they didn't fully understand. "I didn't know you would walk the exile too," the angel whispers, voice cracking like thunder softened by rain. "I did," Jesus replies. They look at each other for a moment, two beings who share a memory too holy for words. Then Jesus turns to you, "Come." The angel steps aside and you walk past him. As you do, he whispers without moving his lips, "You're part of the return." You glance back. His wings open slowly, not to rise, but to bless. Jesus leads you to the far side of the grove where a gate stands. Not made of gold or flame, just woven branches tenderly shaped, arching together like hands in prayer. This, he says, is the gate Adam never saw. You frown. "I thought he left through a gate." He nods. He left through the eastern gate, the one closed behind him. This one leads forward, not out. You study it. There's no lock, no handle. Only an understanding this gate doesn't open with force. It opens with remembrance. Jesus rests his hand lightly on it. The branches tremble, not fearfully, more like a breath held too long. Few ever glimpse it, he says, but everyone feels it when they ache for home. Some say Eden is gone. Others say it's hidden in another dimension, folded beneath the fabric of time. But this moment suggests something different. Eden waits in us. Not as memory, but as magnetism. Jesus steps aside. Touch it. You approach and raise your hand. The moment your fingertips graze the bark, your mind floods not with images, but with sensations. Peace in moments you didn't earn, joy that showed up uninvited. A silence that held you when words failed. All of it. Eden. You step back, breath caught. This gate will open one day, Jesus says. Not to return us to what was, but to fulfill what's coming. Behind you, the angel lifts his face toward the sky. A breeze circles the grove. The petals around your feet begin to lift, dancing upward like sparks returning to flame. "Why show me this?" you ask softly. Jesus smiles, "Because your spirit remembers the way." The trail shimmers faintly behind you. A new path appears ahead. Jesus walks on. And so do you, through petals, through memory, through promise. The path winds gently now, like it's taking its time. And you do too. No rush, no fear. Only the steady rhythm of feet brushing through soft grass, and the quiet song of a world in balance. The trees to either side don't lean in, they walk beside you. Their branches sway not in wind, but in agreement, as if participating in your journey. Jesus pauses near a cluster of trees with wide trunks and bark that glows in rippling lines, light that moves like slow water through wood. "We planted these," he says, placing a hand on one. "Not to mark boundaries, to mark turnings." Turnings? He nods. Moments when eternity and earth touched fingers. You felt them, little flickers, goosebumps for no reason, a verse that echoes longer than it should, a moment of stillness that feels like it was waiting just for you. He begins to walk again. This grove grew from those moments. You look around and see the signs now. A knot in one tree shaped like a tear. Another with vines spiraling in threes, Father, Son, Spirit. One tree hums gently when you walk past it, the sound vibrating in your chest, like the echo of a remembered prayer. Jesus touches a tree near the center. Its trunk bears no branches, only a smooth spiral that coils upward toward a single glowing bud. "This one marks the turning of speech," he says. "When language became breath." You raise an eyebrow. "At creation?" "No," he says, "before that." He smiles faintly, the kind of smile someone wears when remembering the start of a great song. "We spoke before anything heard us." This tree remembers that moment. Some mystics believe the Word of God Logos existed not just before creation, but as creation's cause. That speech wasn't a tool, but a being. That the first vibration of the universe was not a bang, but a whisper, a name. Jesus places his hand on the tree and it blooms just once. A single flower, blue and white with petals thin as light. Then it closes again, returning to rest. You both sit on a small rise near the grove's edge. The grass here is thicker, braided in soft knots beneath you. Jesus leans back on his hands, eyes lifted. I remember when Adam first tried to name things, he says. He got most of them wrong. You laugh, then pause. He got them wrong. Terribly, Jesus grins. He called one bird squeaky flapper for a full week. You both laugh. But the beauty, he adds, sobering a little, wasn't in getting it right. It was in trying, in speaking with wonder, in seeing and saying over and over again. That sits with you. There's something sacred in the process itself, in naming what we experience, in trying to make sense of beauty. You wonder aloud, is that what we still do even now? Jesus looks at you, eyes soft. Every time you pray, every time you write, every time you choose kindness over silence, you name what Eden once held in silence. You close your eyes trying to feel it. And you do, faintly, like a distant voice calling your own name from inside a dream. He stands again, brushing grass from his robe. You rise with him. He leads you a little farther until you reach a tree different from the others, short, wide. It leans slightly as if resting. He places a hand on its bark. This tree, he says, wasn't here when Eden was made. You blink, but it's growing now. It appeared, he says, when Eve first sang after the fall. Your breath catches. She sang, you ask. He nods, through tears, through pain, a song of longing, of apology, of hope. You touch the bark. It hums low, soft, like a lullaby wrapped in memory. She didn't try to undo what had happened, Jesus says. She just lifted her voice into the silence, and heaven answered. Some believe Eve's story ends in shame, but here under this tree you understand something more profound. Her song was the seed of every worship, every lament, every melody that ever rose in the dark. Jesus steps back, letting you sit beneath the tree. As you lower yourself to the grass, a single petal falls into your lap. It pulses gently, and when you press it to your chest, you hear a note. Just one. But it carries every sorrow you've ever survived and every joy that waited just behind it. He lets you rest there. For a while there are no words, only the music of beginnings. Then gently Jesus says, come. There's a gate to grace carved in language you've never spoken. You rise slowly, your breath deep and even, and walk beside him once more. The terrain shifts beneath your feet, subtle, like stepping into a thought you haven't yet finished forming. The ground is no longer soil or stone, but something quieter, smoother, almost like parchment stretched under your steps. Every footfall feels like a word being written in invisible ink. Jesus walks silently, his expression gentle but focused. You sense that what comes next is delicate, sacred in a different way than before, like a truth wrapped in breath, not fire. Soon you reach an archway formed by two tall trees, their trunks twisted together like cords in a covenant. Between them, vines stretch across the gap, woven tightly, not randomly, but intentionally. A pattern, a language. Jesus slows and places his hand on the vines. They shimmer. The woven wall begins to unfold, not break, not pull apart, but unfold like a scroll. And behind it is light, not blinding, revealing. You step through and instantly feel the difference. The air here hums like 1,000 voices whispering truths in a tongue too ancient to be spoken aloud. You can't hear the words exactly, but your spirit leans forward, trying to remember. This, Jesus says softly, is the garden's forgotten language. You look at him, you mean like Hebrew, Aramaic? He shakes his head gently. No, older. This is the voice the stars first understood. The tone rivers shaped themselves to follow. The breath that taught silence to sing. You feel the truth of it vibrate in your bones. A language not built on grammar or sound, but on resonance. Meaning that passes through barriers. Some theologians speak of Adamic, a mythical language said to be spoken before the tower before Babel. Others whisper of the pure language mentioned by prophets promised for the days of restoration. But here it is not myth, it's music. Formed not for information, but communion. Jesus crouches near a pool of still water, and when he speaks, he does not use words, you know. He says something that sounds like wind dancing across harp strings. The water responds immediately, rising into ripples that twist into symbols, each one glowing faintly before fading. You don't understand them with your mind, but your heart does. One means restoration. Another means I see you. Another still simply means home. He stands again. This was the language we used before sorrow created misunderstanding. You think of every misworded prayer you've ever whispered, every silent plea you didn't know how to say, and somehow standing here you realize none of them were ever lost. This language translated them, has always been translating them. He leads you further into the clearing where trees grow in a wide circle, each bark covered in etched symbols. Not carved, but grown, raised from the grain like braille made of light. Can I read them, you ask? He nods. Not with your eyes, but with your story. You reach out and touch one. Instantly, you feel a memory rise, not yours, but familiar. You see a woman kneeling in a field, hands clasped, tears streaking her cheeks. She doesn't speak. She aches. But the tree hears her and replies with presence. Another symbol shows you a boy under a bed, hiding from something loud, holding his breath. No words, just fear. But the tree whispered courage. You move from tree to tree, each symbol unlocking a moment the world didn't notice, but heaven did. These, Jesus says, are not just memories. They're echoes. The language of every cry answered before it was spoken aloud. You pause. And people today, we've forgotten this. No, he says gently, you've misplaced it. He places his hand over your chest, but the root is still there. A warmth spreads through you, not hot, just alive, like a small flame catching breath. You'll feel it when music moves you, he continues. When silence says more than words, when someone prays beside you and you understand them without hearing. It's overwhelming and comforting all at once. He turns toward the trees. These symbols, these words are still being written. Every act of love, every sacrifice, adds another. You look up and now you see it, faint lines of light rising from the earth like smoke curling toward the trees. As they touch the trunks, new symbols form, slowly, beautifully. One of them pulses with familiarity. You touch it. It shows you sitting on your bed late at night, whispering a prayer you barely believed would be heard. You thought it was a failure of faith. Here it is, a verse. You step back, heart quiet. Jesus walks again, and the vines fold silently behind you, sealing the chamber of language in stillness once more. Why show me this, you ask? Because he says you speak more fluently than you know. You walk in silence now, but it's different than before. You're not empty of words. You're full of them. The trail bends once more, and this time it carries the weight of eternity. Not heaviness, but density. As though the space around you has become richer, more saturated with meaning. You don't know how, but every breath you take feels thick with time, past, present, and what hasn't yet arrived. Jesus walks quietly ahead, his robe brushing softly against ferns that glow faintly beneath his steps. You pass under a branch that curves like a question mark, its leaves whispering a note too high to hear. Something about this path tells you you're approaching a moment that remembers everything. Then, without warning, the sky above shifts. It doesn't darken. It listens. You look up and see that it's no longer a ceiling of blue or gold, but something sheer like the veil of a temple pulled back ever so slightly. And through it, you glimpse movement. Not clouds, not light. Time. Jesus stops. This is where time came to listen. He says quietly, like speaking too loud might tear the moment. You stand beside him, your breath shallow. The veil above shifts again, and suddenly you see scenes flash through it like stained glass windows carried by wind. You see a desert prophet, eyes closed, hearing words thunder across silence. A girl in Nazareth, clutching her belly, half in terror, half in wonder. A man sweating in a garden, blood mixing with prayers. You realize this is not just memory, it's recognition. This place, Jesus says, was planted at the edge of time. Eden didn't just come before history, it surrounds it. And every so often time bends to remember where it began. You watch another scene ripple across the sky, a weary mother tucking her child into bed, whispering scripture with a voice that barely holds together. Jesus smiles faintly. That moment time stopped and watched. You blink, but why? Because love spoken in suffering rewrites eternity. A silence follows, thick, not awkward, sacred. Some theologians speculate that time, as we experience it, isn't linear at all. That heaven sees all moments at once, like a painting too large for one glance. Others insist time is simply a gift to contain our growth, to give space for choice. But here, watching the sky swirl with moments both ancient and near, you know both ideas are somehow correct. You ask, does time worship? Jesus tilts his head slightly, not with hands, but with memory. The ground beneath you pulses once gently. A breeze stirs the trees, and the sky above, still veiled, still thin, shimmers again. You see yourself. Not now, but then. A day when you almost gave up. When you whispered a prayer you didn't mean, and then laughed bitterly at your own doubt. Time paused there, not to punish, to record. Even doubt, Jesus says, is a thread in the tapestry. The angels don't always understand it. But my Father and I, we do. You look at him shaken, so the broken parts matter too. He turns to you fully now. They are some of the most beautiful. Time bends for joy, but it kneels for surrender. You don't know what to say, so you just watch the veil above as more scenes swirl. A father forgiving his son before the apology ever forms. A widow lighting a candle for someone the world has forgotten. A child smiling at a stranger on the subway, unaware that the stranger was planning not to live another day. And time records it all. Every hidden kindness, Jesus says, is shouted in heaven. You want to stay here forever. But he begins walking again slowly now. Come, he says. There's something I want to show you that even this moment doesn't understand. You follow head bowed not in shame but in awe, and as you walk the sky behind you folds slowly closed. Not erased, witnessed. The path narrows again, but now it's bordered by trees that seem quieter, not less alive, but somber. Their branches don't sway, their leaves don't shimmer. They stand tall and still like sentinels holding their breath. Jesus walks slower here, not out of fatigue, out of reverence. You follow without a word. The ground beneath you feels different, firmer, more rooted. Each step sounds softer, muted. The air has shifted too. It carries the scent of oil and wood, something holy, something waiting. Then you see it. A single tree stands at the end of the trail, not taller than the others, not more radiant. In fact, it looks almost tired, but not in defeat, in sacrifice. Its trunk is straight, strong. The bark is smooth and aged, marked with deep lines, not cracks, but scars. Its limbs stretch wide as though offering itself in every direction, and its roots dive deep, vanishing into soil that glows faintly with something unspeakably old. Jesus stops a few paces from it. This one, he says, quietly waited for the cross. You feel it instantly, the weight of those words, like a hush falling over heaven itself. He steps closer, kneels, and places his hand on the base of the trunk. The tree shudders, not violently, but like someone remembering a grief so deep it shakes the bones. You kneel beside him. This tree, he says, was among the first. He glances at you, voice low. Before Adam, before rivers had names. It stood here waiting for what would come. It knew. You feel the truth rise in the back of your throat like a prayer you forgot how to pray. Some early writings, ancient hidden whispered through centuries, tell of a tree planted by the breath of God, specifically for redemption. That the wood for the cross was chosen long before nails had been imagined. That somewhere in Eden, one tree bowed its head when Jesus passed by. Here it is. You reach out and touch the bark. It's warm, not like sunlight, but like skin still holding life. And when you close your eyes, you hear something. Not a voice, not a cry, a rhythm. Heartbeat. Slow, steady, familiar. And then you see it just for a breath, a flash. 3 wooden beams laid down. The sound of hammering in the distance. And behind it a shadow, not of darkness, but of glory unshaped. Waiting. You open your eyes, breath caught. Jesus is still kneeling, one hand on the tree, the other resting open on his knee. It asked me once, he says softly, if I would recognize it when the time came. He looks up. I said yes. You don't know how to respond, but you feel something inside you shift, not break, bend, toward surrender, toward understanding. He rises slowly, brushing the soil from his robe. It was never chosen for strength, he says, or size or beauty. You ask, then why this one? He gazes at the tree, eyes full of compassion, because it loved. You feel the truth of it echo in your chest. This tree didn't serve the cross, it became it. Willingly, silently, steadfastly. You think about how the world defines purpose by power, by achievement, by attention. And here in Eden, the greatest purpose came from a tree that simply waited. For him, for this. Jesus steps behind the tree now and gently wraps both arms around its trunk, like hugging an old friend. It never complained, he whispers, even as it was cut, even as it was shaped, even when it bore me. Silence follows, and in it the holiness becomes almost unbearable. Then he releases it, steps forward, and motions for you to do the same. You hesitate, then walk toward it, place both hands on its side, and lean in. What you feel is not pain, it's promise. Every splinter in this tree remembers resurrection. Every scar remembers victory. Every ring inside its trunk holds a story of redemption waiting to be told again. You step back changed. Jesus smiles, not proudly, tenderly. It wasn't the wood that saved you, he says, but the love behind it. You nod slowly. He turns and begins walking again. Come, he says, voice gentle but sure. There's a sky I want you to see. One Eden held long before clouds. You glance once more at the tree, and it stands quietly without fanfare, a witness. a martyr, a friend. You follow him in silence, the kind of silence that means more than words. Your footsteps are slower now, not because of fatigue, but because something inside you has softened. You feel more awake and yet more ready to rest than ever before. The trail opens onto a gentle rise, and as you step forward, the trees begin to thin, spreading apart like hands pulling back a curtain, and beyond it the sky. But not the sky you've known. This sky is not blue. It's not even color, it's presence. A sheer expanse of divine essence stretching endlessly above, behind, and within everything. It pulses like breath, glows like thought. Stars drift across it, not in silence, but in harmony. They don't shine, they sing. Jesus steps into the clearing and lifts his gaze. This, he says softly, is the veil of heaven before it was lowered. You follow his gaze. It's like looking into the mind of God. There's no sun here, no moon, and yet you can see more clearly than ever. Light doesn't fall from above, it rises from below, from the earth, from within you. The atmosphere hums with stillness. You've never known stillness could hum. He sits down on the grass and you do the same. For a long time, neither of you speaks. And then Jesus points upward to a ripple in the sky. A memory unfolds there made of starlight. You see the garden again, but from above. Not as you've walked it, but as it was at the very beginning. Angels like rivers of fire weaving between trees. Adam laughing. Eve turning slowly in circles beneath a rain of glowing petals. God walking with them. And that sky, this sky, smiling down. Eden's sky was never meant to end, Jesus says. It was meant to open. You stare upward. What happened? He answers gently, they chose to see with eyes only meant for trust. The veil you're looking at now begins to ripple again, and you see it the moment it folded closed. The moment heaven stepped back, not in punishment, in protection. It wasn't locked, he continues, just veiled. Like a parent closing the door gently, not to shut a child out, but to give them space to grow. Some say the sky was once a curtain between realms, torn only at the cross, when the veil of the temple split in two. Others believe Eden's atmosphere itself was spiritual, an overlap between this world and the next dissolved only when sin distorted the tuning. But sitting here beneath this shimmering dome, the question itself becomes irrelevant. You realize this, the sky always wanted to be near. Jesus lies back on the grass and folds his hands behind his head. This is where I came before I came. You lie down beside him. The prophets, he continues, caught glimpses. Isaiah saw the train of the robe, Ezekiel the wheels and eyes, John a door standing open in the heavens. But here, it was never shut. You stare upward and now the stars begin to form patterns, not constellations, stories. One forms the Red Sea parting, another a ladder reaching into clouds, another still three figures in a fiery furnace untouched. These are echoes, he says, memories the sky kept because the world needed to remember. You're quiet for a moment. Then you ask, why show me this? Jesus answers not with explanation, but invitation. So you'll stop looking down for what's already been sown into your upward gaze. You let those words settle. It's so easy down there in the other world to forget where to look inward and spiral, to look outward and panic. But here you remember the upward pull, the call not of pressure but of promise. Then something shifts. The stars above form a circle, a gentle ring of light. Slowly inside that circle, one new star appears. Not brighter, just closer. You stare at it. What's that one, you ask? He turns to you and smiles. That one's yours. Your heart tightens, but I don't deserve... Don't finish that sentence, he says softly. You're quiet again. The star pulses once, then fades into the dome. Not gone, just placed, held. Jesus rises. Come, he says. There's someone who lingered here longer than most. You stand the image of the star still warming your chest like a quiet fire. And as you walk behind him, you glance upward one last time. The sky above Eden doesn't just cover the garden. It remembers it. And maybe it remembers you too. The path shifts once again this time, curving into a quiet hollow, lined with soft moss and low branches that create a dome overhead. It's dim here, not dark, but dim in the way candlelight dims a chapel. Reverent, calming. The air is cooler, with a stillness that suggests someone holy has passed through and never really left. Jesus slows his steps. You notice it right away, his shoulders lower, his hands relax, and a hush settles around him like a familiar robe. You ask quietly, where are we now? He answers with a smile that holds history. This is where the angel wanted to stay. You glance around expecting brilliance. But instead, the beauty here is soft worn in like a favorite place, visited again and again. Then you see him. Not radiant, not terrifying, just kneeling. Wings folded, face bowed, hands resting gently on his knees. His eyes are closed. He looks less like a soldier and more like a friend caught in prayer. Jesus steps closer. He delivered the breath that made man. He was there when the dust rose and became flesh. You watch as the angel opens his eyes, not startled, just aware. They lock eyes, Jesus and the angel, and the bond between them is obvious. Not of duty, of affection. I remember the angel says, voice low, wrapped in awe, the moment you kissed Adam's brow. Jesus nods, so do I. Some teachings claim that angels were merely messengers, distant from emotion, created to serve without question. But here it's different. This angel carries emotion like a river holds reflection gently, faithfully. He turns to you now. His gaze doesn't pierce, it welcomes. I was assigned to leave after the exile, he says, but I couldn't. Jesus explains he lingered, not out of disobedience, but devotion. You ask, why didn't God send him away? He didn't need to, Jesus replies. Love doesn't need permission to grieve. The angel rises now. He's taller than you, but he lowers his head slightly as if to not overwhelm. I've stood guard on mountains, watched oceans part, but this place, his voice trails. This is where I felt closest to joy. He gestures toward a corner of the grove. You follow his gaze and see something unusual, a simple circle of stones worn smooth by time, each one covered in moss. That's where I waited, he says, every day, hoping I'd be told you may open the way again. Your heart aches with him. You step into the circle, and though it's small, it feels full of what could have been, full of hope that never turned bitter. You kneel down and immediately feel a warmth in the earth, faint but persistent. The warmth of longing that never gave up. Jesus walks to the center and places a hand on the nearest stone. The Father never forgot his waiting, he says. Even angels who weep are remembered. Some believe angels are beyond emotion. Others say they rejoice but cannot mourn. But in this grove you know better. This angel loved Eden, and he loved the children of dust who walked through it. I watched Adam learn to walk, the angel says quietly. I watched him name the stars he could see. I taught Eve how to listen to the wind. You blink. You did. He nods, not in words, in presence. That sits with you. The idea that presence itself is language. That divine beings express not only through command, but through companionship. Jesus steps back and looks around the grove. This place remains because his waiting was worship. You realize something profound. Eden didn't just remember rebellion. It remembered faithfulness, even in the face of silence, even from those never meant to stay. The angel turns to you. You carry the same ability, he says, to wait without bitterness, to hope without guarantee. That is not weakness. That is echo. You feel it in your chest, a quiet alignment, a thread pulling gently into place. Then Jesus gently touches the angel's shoulder. It's time, he says. The angel closes his eyes once more, and in a soft movement lifts into the air, not to leave, but to bless. His wings unfurl just slightly, casting no shadow, only light. He fades upward gently like breath returning to breath, and you're left with the stillness he loved. Jesus turns to you now. Some stay longer, not because they forget, but because they remember more than others. You nod, still kneeling. He reaches out a hand to help you stand. There's one more conversation waiting, he says, from before the world knew what light was. You take his hand, and together you step beyond the grove where memory gives way to something even deeper. Intention. The path changes again, not in appearance, but in feeling. It no longer leads you forward. It draws you in. Jesus walks with purpose now. Not hurried, but as though what's ahead has been waiting since the first breath of creation. And maybe it has. You sense it before you see it. A clearing that isn't really a place, but a moment. A stillness so complete it feels sacred to even think inside it. The trees around this space don't whisper. They watch. The wind doesn't move. It waits. Jesus stops. We're here, he says simply. You look around puzzled. There's no throne, no monument, no altar, just space. Empty, and yet more full than anything you've ever stepped into. This, he says, turning to you, is where I spoke with my Father before anything existed. Your breath catches. Before the stars, you ask. He nods. Before time. He nods again. Before even Eden. He smiles, especially before Eden. You feel your knees buckle slightly, as if the gravity here isn't just physical, it's eternal. He sits on the grass and you follow, heart pounding. In this place, he begins, I said something simple. He looks skyward. I said, let us. The phrase lingers in the air, not past tense, not ancient, still active, still echoing. You whisper, let us make man. He nods, but before that I said something else. You wait. I said, let there be love. And just like that, something shifts inside you. It's not a new thought. It's a recognition, a remembering, that before light, before life, before dust and breath and angels and exile, there was love. Not sentiment, not emotion, not need. Just pure radiant self-giving intention. This is where I agreed to come, he says softly now. Long before Mary, long before the manger, long before the nail. You blink. You chose it? I chose you, he answers. Some theologians have wrestled with the idea of Jesus as the lamb slain before the foundation of the world. They call it metaphor, prophecy, poetry. But here you understand, it wasn't a prediction. It was a promise. Was it hard, you ask? He smiles sadly. The choosing no, the waiting yes. You close your eyes, and in the silence you begin to feel it, not a vision, not a voice, but weight. The sacred weight of decision. The beauty of a yes spoken in the absence of applause. The majesty of a God who planned his own pain, just to be with us. He continues, in this place I saw every face, every failure, every flame, and I said yes, knowing I'd walk through it all. You glance at him. You saw me. He turns, looks into your eyes, and says, without smile, without joke, just truth, you were one of the first. Tears blur your vision, not out of guilt, but awe. He places his palm flat on the ground. This earth, this garden, it bloomed from yes, not command, not power, just yes. You do the same hand to soil, and for the briefest moment you feel it, the original yes. The pulse of heaven agreeing with itself to begin. You ask softly, and the Father, what did he say? Jesus looks upward again, eyes wet with peace. He said, let's make it beautiful. Some believe creation was a divine explosion, others a careful orchestration. Here it's simpler. It was a conversation, a dance of delight. And you were the subject? Jesus lies back in the grass and sighs deeply, like someone revisiting home after a long journey. This place, he says, was never meant to be visited. It was meant to be lived. You lie beside him, the grass warm beneath your back. You look up, but there's no sky, just possibility. And in the stillness, you feel more than you can say. Not because words fail, but because silence speaks better here. Eventually, Jesus sits up again and says gently, there's something we should visit next. You rise. Is it far, you ask? No, he says, it's right on the edge of the rain. You follow him once again, your steps light, but your heart heavy with something sacred. The memory of that conversation, let us still clings to you, like sunlight caught in your clothes. As you walk, the air begins to shift. It grows cooler, softer. You hear it before you feel it. Rain, but not falling, not yet. Jesus stops at the edge of a broad field, where the sky meets the garden with a kind of trembling expectancy. Overhead clouds have gathered, not dark with storm, but thick with meaning. Like a blessing held too long. A single drop lands on your cheek. You flinch, expecting cold, but it's warm, like a tear. Jesus smiles gently. It's not a storm, he says, it's a cleansing. He walks forward and lifts his face to the sky. More drops begin to fall, one by one, soft as lullabies. They touch the leaves, the grass, the stones, and everything begins to glow just slightly, as if the water is reminding creation of what it once was. You step into the field beside him, and the rain finds you. It soaks your hair, your hands, your shoulders, but it doesn't chill you. It warms you from within. Every drop carries something, a memory, a promise, a whisper. This is Eden's first rain, Jesus says quietly. You blink. But wasn't it said that it didn't rain before the flood? He nods, not like that, but here, before time counted loss, the garden wept once. You pause, listening more carefully now. The rain doesn't patter, it sings. A single low melody, like the murmur of water returning to its source. Why did it weep, you ask? He doesn't answer right away. Instead, he kneels, touching the earth with his fingertips. The rain came, he says at last, when I told the garden about the fall. You freeze. It knew something would be broken, he continues. Not by accident, but by choice. And the garden wept. You kneel beside him. The rain is steady now, flowing down your face like baptism or grief. You want to speak, but the lump in your throat holds you still. It wasn't sadness like you know it, he says. It was love letting go. You look at him startled. The garden, let us go. He nods. It didn't close its gates in judgment. It folded its arms to protect what remained. It held the seeds of return. Some believe Eden was sealed only by flaming swords and angels, But here you realize something deeper. Eden covered itself in mercy. It didn't shut out humanity, it preserved itself, waiting for reunion. You lie back in the grass, now rain falling softly on your chest. And something stirs beneath you. You feel it. The roots, the soil, the old memory of every step mankind has taken. All of it soaked now, cleansed by water, not of judgment, but of preparation. Jesus lies beside you, face turned toward the sky. The clouds above part, slightly revealing a soft blue halo threaded with silver. This, he says, wasn't a punishment. He lifts his hand. This was a promise. The rain falls harder now, not loud, not painful, just steady. It soaks you through, and with it washes away burdens you didn't even know you brought into this place. Regret, fear, shame shaped like silence. Gone. And you realize with wonder you feel clean. Not just on the outside, all the way through. You sit up slowly, your clothes drenched but glowing faintly. Jesus does the same. His robe clings to him like light wrapped in water. You ask softly, does the garden still remember all of this? He looks out across the rain-soaked field. It remembers everything. A pause. And it waits. He stands again and reaches for your hand. When he lifts you to your feet, your fingers are still damp, but they don't drip. You've been changed, not just rinsed. Come, he says. There's something you need to hear next. You glance back at the field one more time. The rain is slowing now, retreating into mist. Flowers are blooming where the drops linger. A single leaf lifts and turns slowly in the air, then settles again like a feather. You follow him. And behind you, Eden exhales. The mist trails behind you as you step beyond the rain-soaked field, your clothes still wet but no longer heavy. The air is lighter now, like the space after weeping when tears have cleared the way for something deeper to settle in. You don't speak. You don't need to. Jesus walks a few steps ahead, humming softly. Then you hear it. A low hum, not from him, not from the trees, but from the ground itself. It's subtle, like a chord held under breath. You pause and the sound grows clearer. It's a name. Not in your language, not in any you've known, but still, you recognize it. Yeshua. Jesus smiles as you catch up. The garden remembers my name, he says. You glance around. It's singing it. No, he replies gently. It's becoming it. You walk into a small clearing where every blade of grass seems to glow slightly. A breeze moves through it like a wave across still water. As it passes, you hear it again. Not a voice, not even a melody. Just resonance. The name again, Yeshua. Every tree, every root, every petal holds the syllables. Not just as sound, but as essence. As if the name itself is the spine of Eden. You whisper, why now? He turns to you, because now you're listening differently. You kneel in the grass and place your hand to the earth. Immediately the name rushes into you, not loud, not forced, but with gentleness so vast, it brings tears to your eyes. It doesn't just enter your ears, it enters your bones. It holds you. Some say God's name is ineffable, unutterable. Others say it's written into our very DNA, that the breath we take in speaks Yah, and the one we release says We. But here now, the name becomes more than mystery. It becomes memory. The garden itself breathes his identity. This is what Adam heard Jesus says quietly, before language, before fear. He kneels beside you. He didn't call me Lord. He called me beloved. You let the words settle. Something inside you aches not out of sorrow, but longing. A homesickness you didn't know you had until just now. You look up. Does the earth still sing it? He places his hand on your shoulder, even in its pain. And suddenly you hear it not just in Eden, but in the echoes of the world beyond. In waves breaking at dusk, in wind brushing wheat fields, in newborns' first cries, in the sighs of the weary at the end of day. Yeshua. He rises again and lifts his arms slightly. All around you, the grass straightens, the leaves rustle, the ground trembles not in fear, but in welcome. You stand too. What do I do with this, you ask softly. He looks at you, not past you, not through you, at you. You remember it, he says. You carry it. You let it rise in moments when you forget who you are. You place a hand over your chest and you feel it now, not your own heartbeat, but a second rhythm layered beneath it. Slower, stronger. The garden's pulse, his name. Even creation, he says, has not stopped whispering for me. Some theologians say Paul meant this metaphorically when he wrote that creation groans as if in childbirth waiting for redemption. But here, it's no metaphor. The groaning is a song. A longing not of despair, but of hope. And it's not just for restoration. It's for return. You ask, will it ever stop? No, he says with a smile. Not until the name no longer needs to be remembered because it will be known. You look around the clearing once more. The grass now sways with peace. The sky above shimmers slightly, not dramatically, but in soft pulses like breath. Come, he says. There's a voice in the silence I want you to meet. You nod and walk behind him again, but now you hear it in every step. Yeshua, Yeshua, not from outside, from within. You walk with his name still humming inside your chest. Not like a song stuck in your head, more like your heart's original rhythm rediscovered. The sound doesn't fade as you leave the clearing. It folds into silence, but not absence, presence, a deeper quiet. Jesus leads you into a grove, so still it feels like even the light has paused. No wind, no birds, just the feeling that something sacred is about to speak. He stops and you stop beside him. Ahead is the serpent, curled on a rock head, resting against its coils, watching you with ancient eyes. It doesn't move, it doesn't strike, it only waits. Your body tenses, reflex fear instinct. Jesus doesn't flinch. He steps forward not with force but with familiarity. The serpent lifts its head. Peace, Jesus says, voice firm but calm. And it obeys. You expected tension, combat, maybe judgment. But what happens instead is something stranger. Silence. Thick, whole, unblinking. You whisper, why is it here? Jesus replies, because not everything broken became a threat. You glance at him startled, but it deceived. He nods, yes, but not here, not now. The serpent's eyes blink slowly. You can't read its expression, but somehow you sense weariness. Not pride, not plotting, just wait. Jesus walks closer, standing just a breath away. It was once part of the harmony, he says. Before the lie, before the division. Some texts call the serpent cursed above all creatures. Others suggest it was never truly a serpent to begin with, but a spirit clothed in form. Some even wonder if it lost more than just legs, that it lost the right to beauty. But here in this stillness, you realize the tragedy wasn't its shape. It was the silence it chose to break. Jesus sits beside the serpent. Why don't you cast it out, you ask, unsettled. Because judgment already happened, he answers. And this is not about fear, it's about memory. The serpent lowers its head to the grass. Jesus places a hand on the stone beside it. This rock, he says, remembers the moment it chose to speak. You ask, did you know it would? I did. Did you stop it? He turns, meeting your eyes. No. Because the silence that followed taught the world more than the words ever could. You think about that. About how after the lie came the hiding, the shame, the echo of footsteps in a garden. But here there's no hiding, no movement, just acknowledgement. You crouch down, still wary, and glance into the serpent's eyes. And you see something unexpected. Regret. Not manipulative, not theatrical. Just the weight of having broken something it couldn't mend. Jesus speaks again, now softly. There is no redemption for the deceiver, but there is a reckoning, not of wrath, but of silence. You feel it now. This moment is not about mercy or vengeance. It's about truth being allowed to sit undisturbed. The serpent lowers itself fully to the earth as if surrendering to its own history. And Jesus stands. He does not banish. He does not bless. He simply acknowledges. And the serpent does not follow as you walk away. You pass through a veil of stillness and the grove fades behind you. What was that, you whisper? Jesus responds, that was the weight of a choice the world still feels, but no longer needs to fear. You nod slowly. You didn't come to Eden to confront evil. You came to understand the holy. But even here in sacred space, truth holds space for all stories, even the hard ones. Where now, you ask? Jesus points toward a distant hill, golden under a cloudless sky. A lamb, he says, one not from this world is waiting. You walk again lighter this time. Not because the truth was easy, but because the silence was honest. The landscape softens as you follow Jesus toward the hill. The trees thin out behind you, the air brightens, and the sky deepens into a warm hue that can't be named, something between gold and breath. Each step feels quieter than the last, not because the earth is quieter, but because you are. There's no more need to ask where you're going, you can feel it. Something sacred waits just ahead, something gentle yet infinite, and then you see it, a lamb, standing alone at the top of the hill. It does not graze, it does not run, it waits. Its wool is impossibly white, not the kind of white that shines, but the kind that invites, like moonlight on still water. It seems untouched by time or weather or even breath. And its eyes, deep, ancient, knowing, fix on Jesus the moment he crests the hill. Jesus stops a few steps from it. He does not call. He bows. You freeze. You've seen angels honor him, the garden respond to him, even time itself bend before him. But now, he bows. Jesus turns to you. This lamb is not of this world. He smiles softly. It was sent to wait for me, and to remind me. The lamb steps forward. No sound. It moves like light passing through water, softly, surely. Jesus kneels now, and the lamb presses its forehead to his. You feel something inside your soul unravel, like a knot being loosened you didn't even know was there. You whisper, "Is it you?" He nods without looking, and not me. He touches the lamb's face. It carries the memory of sacrifice before blood ever fell. It holds what was promised before pain ever spoke. Some ancient traditions speak of a lamb hidden before the foundation of the world. Not metaphorical, real. An eternal being not destined for altar but for reminder. A witness. A presence of what love would one day require. And here it is. It steps back now and looks at you. You feel seen, not judged. Known. Jesus stands, and the lamb walks a slow circle around you. Its presence is not weighty, but whole. You feel your own thoughts slow in its nearness. The ache of every burden you've ever carried cools into something soft. It does not speak, Jesus says, but it sings. You pause. I don't hear anything. You will. You close your eyes. At first nothing. Then faintly, like a melody heard through glass, a song begins to rise. Not in your ears, in your bones. It's a lullaby and a requiem and a hymn and a promise. It holds the sorrow of Gethsemane and the stillness of Sabbath morning and the thunder of resurrection woven through a single wordless tune. You feel tears trail down your cheeks, not from sadness, from release. This song, Jesus says, was sung into me the night before the cross. It kept me warm. It reminded me of why. You press a hand to your chest. It's beautiful. He looks at you now, eyes soft. It's yours too. You want to stay here forever, beside this lamb, beneath this sky, with this song in your chest. But the lamb walks to the crest of the hill and lies down peacefully as if finishing a task long completed. Jesus places a hand on your back. Let it rest. You do. Together you walk down the other side of the hill. Neither of you speaks. Neither of you needs to. Behind you the lamb remains, its eyes closed. Its song still with you. You don't know how, but you know you'll never forget it. Jesus looks ahead and says gently, "Now, let me draw something in the dust." You descend the hill with the memory of the lamb's song still glowing inside you. It doesn't fade, it settles. Like incense clinging to the folds of your spirit. Even your footsteps feel quieter, as if the earth now moves in rhythm with what you carry. Jesus walks beside you now, not ahead. It feels different. Not because he is less your guide, but because you're more yourself. You come to a wide stretch of level ground. The soil here is soft, darker than the rest of Eden, rich and untouched, like the surface of a page that's never been written on. Jesus kneels. You kneel beside him. He brushes his hand across the earth, and the soil responds, parting like silk under his fingers. Then, with emotion, both deliberate and gentle, he begins to draw. Not with haste, not with symbols, with meaning. At first you see lines simple winding, then arcs, circles, a single curve that loops around the others. It seems abstract, but something in you knows it already. Not with your mind, with your memory. You whisper, "What is it?" He looks up at you. "This is the shape of grace." The lines shimmer faintly. They don't stay still, they breathe. Like light caught in motion. As you watch, the dust around his fingers begins to hum softly, almost like the lamb's song, but lower. Grounded. This, he continues, was the first thing I wrote into the dust before Adam opened his eyes. You blink, you drew, before you breathed. He nods. I gave him shape, but I gave him story first. And suddenly it makes sense. The line that loops and crosses the curve that returns, it's not a picture, it's a promise. Some scholars speak of divine fingerprints in creation. Others suggest humanity is simply shaped from dust and destined to return to it. But here now you see it plainly. You were drawn first, not just formed, authored. Jesus adds one final stroke to the design, and the dust glows. Each of you, he says, carries this imprint, but life covers it, pain distorts it, pride tries to redraw it, yet it never leaves. You look closer. What does it say? He smiles. It says mine. You reach your hand out almost without thinking and hover your fingers above the glowing lines. And instantly, you see your childhood bedroom, the moment you nearly gave up the quiet forgiveness you didn't know you offered, the time you wept, and didn't understand why the friend you lost, the grace you received anyway. All of it drawn into the lines. The design in the dust isn't just about creation. It's about you. Jesus leans back and lets the dust settle again, but the glow remains faintly beneath the surface. He says, "This is what I drew when I knew you'd forget who you are." You swallow the lump in your throat, so every time we fall, every time we hide, this still remains, he finishes, unmoved, waiting. The wind stirs, a breeze lifts some of the soil. The drawing begins to blur. You panic, reaching out instinctively, but he gently takes your wrist. "Let it go," he says. But it's not disappearing, he smiles. It's going with you. You watch as the last of the image fades back into the earth, yet somehow you feel fuller. It's not gone. It's in you now. Jesus rises, dusting his hands, and offers his hand to you. You stand. "What now?" you ask. "There's a tree," he says, "but not like the others. It's waiting to remember me." You walk again, hand tingling where the dust once glowed. You look back, and though the drawing is no longer visible, you know you are. The path narrows once more, curving toward a grove of trees that lean inward as if keeping a sacred secret. The canopy above thickens, dimming the light, but not with shadow, with reverence. You feel it before you see it, something ancient, something alive in a way that surpasses even Eden's earlier wonders. Jesus slows his steps. Ahead in the heart of the grove stands a tree unlike any other. Its trunk is tall, smooth as polished stone, but warm like living flesh. The bark shimmers not with color, but with memory. Faint images move beneath the surface like reflections on water, footsteps, tears, laughter, open hands. You stop in awe. Jesus walks to it, places his palm gently on the trunk. The tree trembles. Not with fear, not with wind, with recognition. "This," he says softly, "is the tree of life." You forget to breathe. It doesn't glow like you imagined. It doesn't demand attention. It simply is rooted in peace, in purpose, in presence. Its branches stretch far above the canopy, disappearing into a sky that no longer seems to matter. You don't look up at it. You feel it surround you. Jesus turns to you. "This tree has waited for me." You step closer. The air changes. It feels thicker, but in a holy way, like walking into incense. Your heartbeat slows. Your thoughts hush. He continues, "It remembers my touch from the beginning. And it remembers my silence in the hours when I could not reach it." You frown. "When you couldn't?" "When I bore death," he says, "when even Eden turned away to wait." The tree hums gently now, its bark flickering with pulses of light. One image forms clearly, a hand pierced. You blink. Then you see his blood soaking into its roots. "The cross was not made from this tree," Jesus says, "but this tree felt it." Some theologians have speculated that the tree of life reappears in Revelation once again, in the center of a garden, now a city, its leaves healing nations. Others suggest it never left, that it waits unseen until all is restored. Here you realize it never disappeared. It simply waited. Jesus steps back and gestures toward its lowest branch. "Touch it," he says. You hesitate. "Is that allowed?" He smiles. "You were born for it." You reach up and lay your hand against the limb. The moment your skin meets the bark, memory floods you. Not yours. The trees. You feel the rush of creation, the breath that called the garden into bloom. You feel Eve's laughter the first time she rested in its shade. You feel a wind pass through its limbs the moment Adam sang his first song. You feel a shudder when the gates closed, and a deep, abiding ache as centuries passed. But you also feel hope, warm, strong, steady like sunlight beneath the soil. You pull your hand back, tears in your eyes. Jesus whispers it still believes. You turn to him. Believes what? That humanity will come home. You look at the tree again. It has never stopped reaching. And you realize something else. The tree of life isn't just part of Eden. It is Eden, its heartbeat, its anchor. The tree isn't sacred because of its fruit, Jesus says. It's sacred because of its waiting. You whisper, "Can we eat from it?" He smiles but doesn't answer. Instead, he walks slowly around the tree and places his hand against the base. The ground vibrates faintly. The leaves rustle. A single fruit drops not to the ground but into his hand. He looks at you. "This is not yet for today." He places the fruit gently at the root. It melts into the soil, absorbed like light into water. "The day will come," he says, "when this tree bears fruit again for the world." You watch it fade, and the tree stills, content not in being useful, but in being faithful. Jesus turns. "There's more to see," he says, "a meadow not yet finished." You take one last look at the tree. It doesn't call you. It blesses you, and you walk on. The trees begin to fall behind you now, their long branches waving gently like hands, offering a quiet benediction. The ground ahead rises slightly, not steep but steady, and the sky begins to widen again above your head, no longer veiled or trembling, but open and waiting. Jesus walks beside you. Neither of you speaks. You feel the stillness deepen as the path leads you toward a hilltop bathed in soft light. But there's something strange about it. At first, you don't quite see what's odd. Then you do. There's no grass here, no flowers, no vines. Just earth smooth, untouched, and faintly glowing, a blank canvas. You stop. Jesus does too. This he says, sweeping his arm toward the space ahead, is the unfinished meadow. You blink, unfinished. He nods. It's the part of Eden that hasn't bloomed yet. You step forward slowly. The ground doesn't feel dead. It feels waiting, like breath drawn in but not yet released. Jesus kneels and brushes his fingers along the soil. It grows, he says, only when what's planted here begins in surrender. You look at the earth more closely now. It pulses faintly, like something is alive just beneath the surface. Not buried, just not ready. I thought Eden was complete, you whisper. He shakes his head gently. It was always growing, always listening. He stands and walks toward the center of the meadow. You follow, careful with each step, though the ground welcomes you. Then he kneels again and with a single finger draws a line through the soil. Where his finger passes, flowers bloom, not wildly, not with bursts of color, but with quiet purpose, one after another, unfolding like breath made visible. Each one unique, each one humming softly like a name being spoken in a language beyond sound. You kneel beside him. What are they, you ask? He doesn't answer at first. He just keeps drawing circles, spirals, waves. Then he whispers prayers. Your breath catches. Not the ones you remember, he adds. The ones you gave up on. The ones you whispered once and forgot. The ones you meant, but feared wouldn't matter. You watch as more flowers rise. One is shaped like a hand reaching upward. Another curls in like a heart in waiting. Another still delicate trembling blooms in the shape of a teardrop. This meadow, he says, grows from what wasn't finished. Some believe prayers vanish when they go unanswered. Others believe they return like echoes altered by time or faith or fate. But here you realize nothing spoken in honesty is ever lost. Jesus places his hand flat on the ground, and for a moment the entire meadow shimmers not with light, but with intention. There are prayers planted here, he says, that have waited for centuries. You think of your own, the words spoken at night when no one listened. The wishes you stopped hoping for. The names you've whispered with trembling. The long silences that followed. You glance at him. Will they bloom? They already are, he answers. You scan the field. Dozens, hundreds, thousands of blooms, each with a signature, not of ink, not of sound, of presence. They don't answer requests, he says, they answer relationship. You press your hand to the soil. It's warm. And suddenly you know one of your own prayers is planted here somewhere. You don't know which one, but you feel it. Still alive. Still becoming. Jesus stands once more. This meadow will finish blooming when my people stop rushing, he says. You look at him. They're always in a hurry to move on, he continues, to build, to prove. But what I love most is when they sit beside me and simply plant. He begins walking again, the blooms closing gently behind him, not disappearing, just resting. You follow, and as you leave the unfinished meadow, you feel something shift inside your chest. You no longer fear what's incomplete. You trust it. Jesus glances back at you and smiles. There's one more place where names are spoken as worship, he says. Are you ready? You nod, and the ground before you opens into golden light. The golden light ahead spills like oil across the ground, thick, radiant, and impossibly soft. As you step into it, you feel it coat you, not on your skin, but through your spirit. Like being wrapped in warmth you forgot you needed. Jesus walks just ahead, silent again, but the kind of silence that prepares you. Not emptiness, expectation. You round a gentle bend and then you see it. A wide open field, but not like the unfinished meadow. This place glows with song. You can't see where the music is coming from, but you feel it vibrating gently through the ground, resonating in your ribcage. Not a melody, not words, just waves of name after name after name rising like incense from the soil. You whisper, what is this? Jesus stops beside you, hands folded in front of him. This, he says, is where my Father called me beloved. Your knees almost give way. In the center of the field, a tall beam of light reaches from the earth into the sky, not piercing it, but connecting. The air around it bends slightly, like the fabric of reality is being drawn upward by a hand you can't see. And from the beam names rise, not spoken aloud, sung. You hear them not with your ears, but with your spirit. One of them you recognize immediately. Yeshua. Another follows. The beloved Son. Another. Lamb, light, shepherd, door, vine, king, word. Each name echoes through the field, not shouted, not chanted, honored. The first time he called me, beloved Jesus says I had no body, no beginning. He smiles. The last time he called me that, I carried every wound. The light pulses and a new name rises. Faithful. It floats into the air like a banner. Some believe God's voice thundered only at the River Jordan and on the Mount of Transfiguration. But here in Eden's echo chamber, you feel that voice never stopped. It has always been calling, always singing, always naming. And now the most unexpected thing happens. A name rises that doesn't belong to him. It belongs to you. It doesn't sound like your name in this world. It's fuller, deeper. Not what you're called by others, but what you're known by heaven. You turn to him in shock. He nods gently, that's your real name. Tears pool in your eyes, and you don't even understand why. But the moment you hear it, something inside you straightens. Like a posture you didn't realize was hunched. Like a truth finally standing up. You were always part of the song, Jesus says. You whisper, but why me? He places a hand over your heart. You were chosen, he says, not for greatness, not for perfection, for relationship. More names begin to rise now. Not titles. Stories. The one who trusted in silence. The one who forgave when it cost too much. The one who returned. The one who loved through fear. The one who waited. And each one joins the chorus. He looks toward the beam of light. My Father called me beloved before the world began. But he's been waiting to say the same to you. You inhale slowly. A warmth you can't describe floods your chest, not fire, not breath, something in between. Then the light narrows. Not disappearing, just focusing. It surrounds Jesus. And for a moment you see him not as man, not as teacher, not even as savior, but as son. You see him through the Father's eyes. Adored. Chosen. Held. Enough. And in that same moment, he turns and looks at you. And you are seen that way too. No conditions. No delay. Beloved, he steps out of the light and places both hands on your shoulders. The next place we go is hidden, he says. Even Adam didn't find it. You nod, overwhelmed but ready. He smiles. And together you walk toward the edge of the known. The field fades behind you, but the name you heard, your name doesn't leave. It stays in your chest like a quiet fire flickering with every step you take. You're not walking heavier or lighter, you're walking truer. Jesus leads you now toward a part of Eden that feels veiled. Not by mist or shadow, but by choice. The trees here lean inward again, but not in warning, in secrecy. As if keeping something holy that hasn't yet been shared with the world. You ask softly, is this a place of rest? Jesus smiles. No, this is the path Adam never took. You stop. You've never heard of such a path. But I thought you begin. He knew the garden, Jesus says, but not all of it. He walked in it, named it, tended it. But this path was hidden not as punishment, but as invitation. He begins walking again, and you follow. The path beneath your feet isn't dirt. Its woven roots intertwined and glowing faintly beneath the surface. They carry a pulse like memory embedded in the soil. Each step feels like it echoes across time. Jesus continues. This was the path for after obedience, a path not of exile but exploration, the journey of those who stayed. You can't help but whisper, but no one stayed. He stops and turns to you. That's why it's still waiting. You pass under a tree with leaves shaped like teardrops. Not because they grieve, but because they remember what wasn't chosen, and somehow they still grow. This path, he says, is not a correction. It's a possibility. The road humanity will walk again one day, when Eden returns. You walk deeper. The trees part, revealing a narrow ridge. At its edge, a view, and what you see takes your breath. Below, not far, lies a winding stream you haven't seen before. Gentle silver blue winding through green meadows, untouched by even the earliest footfalls. And lining it are houses. Small ones. Circular. Simple, but radiant. Dwellings, you ask? Jesus nods, for the ones who never rushed. You kneel at the edge of the ridge. The air smells like rest, not sleep-settledness, the scent of lives never separated from their source. Jesus sits beside you. Adam was meant to find this place after 1,000 walks, after 1,000 choices of trust. It wasn't hidden from him, just beyond where he chose to stop. Some mystics speak of alternate destinies, others of Eden being more than a physical place, of it being a layered realm containing what might have been if only faith had stretched just a little farther. Here it's not theory, it's terrain. And it's still here. Jesus places a hand on your back. You don't need to reach it yet, he says. You only need to know it's real. You nod, overwhelmed again, but not crushed. You showed me the path he never walked, you say. Will others walk it? Yes, he replies without hesitation. Every time someone forgives when it's hardest. Every time someone listens before speaking. Every time love is chosen over pride. Each step brings the path closer. You feel it now, not as some distant dream, but as a future drawing itself near. Jesus stands, brushing the dust from his robe. There's one more place, he says, where everything comes together. You rise beside him, glancing once more at the hidden dwellings below. They're waiting, you ask. He smiles. They're not just waiting, they're remembering forward. You follow him as he turns. This time the trees part not to hide but to welcome, and the air ahead begins to shimmer with stillness deeper than silence. The shimmer ahead is not light, as you know it, no glow, no glint. It's weightless stillness draped over the trail like a velvet curtain of presence. You don't walk through it, you breathe through it. As you pass beneath the arching branches, the garden softens again, more than silence, more than calm. This place feels like a held breath. Jesus slows, and you match his pace instinctively. What is this, you whisper? He doesn't answer with words. He simply steps aside and opens his hand toward a clearing you hadn't noticed before. At the center, a small pool, still as glass, not wide, not deep, just enough space for reflection. But the surface doesn't reflect the sky. It reflects truth. You walk to its edge and kneel. And there, without distortion, without delay, you see your soul. Not your body, not even your memories. Your soul. Unclothed, unfiltered, unmarred. And the strange thing is, you don't flinch. You expected shame, fear, avoidance. But what you see looking back at you is honest. You, wounded but not ruined. Flawed but not rejected. Incomplete yet deeply whole. Jesus kneels beside you. This, he says softly, is the place where Eden meets heaven. You look at him. This is the convergence. He nods. Where the garden and the kingdom touch not through gates or rituals, but through truth unhidden. You gaze into the pool again, and now something shifts. Your reflection changes not into someone else, but into who you were always becoming. You see your face marked with peace that doesn't come from success. Your eyes bright with wisdom that came through silence. Your hands open, not grasping, not defending, and your soul glowing. This is who I see every time I look at you, Jesus says. You want to speak, but you can't. Not because your voice is stolen, because no word could honor what you see. Some teachings say heaven is a reward, Eden a myth. Others say heaven is far, Eden long lost. But here in this clearing where everything rests, the truth is simpler. Heaven and Eden are both memories of a future that's already yours. You place your hand just above the pool. The surface ripples, not breaking your reflection, but completing it. And suddenly your past doesn't feel like a trail of regrets. It feels like the journey home. Jesus speaks again, barely a whisper. You are not someone trying to get back in. You turn to him. You're someone who never truly left. The ripples fade. Your reflection returns to stillness. You rise slowly, not because the moment has ended, but because it's now part of you. Jesus does too. He looks toward a distant horizon where the trees seem to bow in rows. There's one more thing I want to show you, he says. A place where all waiting ends. You glance back at the pool. It no longer reflects your face. It reflects his. Peaceful, joyful, waiting. You turn and follow him, and the stillness behind you watches not to hold you back, but to bless your next step. The horizon ahead glows not with daylight, not with fire, with fulfillment. Like time itself has come to rest, folded into light. The trees thin into wide arcs, spaced as though arranged by a patient hand. No walls, no gates, just an openness that feels like a long-held promise finally exhaled. Jesus walks without speaking now. You sense the weight of what comes next, not as burden, but as arrival. He leads you to a wide plain, covered in soft white blossoms. They move with a rhythm not caused by wind, but by memory, each petal rising and falling like the breath of someone sleeping deeply. At the center of the plain stands something simple, a table. Long, unadorned, set with no plates, no gold, no candles, just space and names, not written, not etched, known. You stop. Jesus places a hand on your back and speaks in a voice filled with gentleness. This is where everything I promised will be shared. You stare at the table. It doesn't stretch into infinity. It stretches into belonging. Seats are shaped by the lives that will one day fill them. Some are still forming. Some glow faintly, as if someone has already taken their place in dreams. One chair catches your eye. Familiar. Draws you without trying. Jesus follows your gaze. It's not reserved for what you've done, he says. It's prepared for who you are. Your knees go weak. This is the table from Revelation, and yet It's more personal. Not a royal banquet, not a feast of conquest. A family table. The first meal Adam never ate, the one Jesus always held in his heart. You walk slowly toward your seat and rest your fingertips on the back of the chair. It's warm, not like heat. Like welcome. You don't sit. Not yet. You look around. The blossoms have begun to hum a soft, wordless song. And suddenly others appear, not people, not yet, but echoes of them. Moments. Laughter shared long ago. Prayers whispered in bedrooms. Forgiveness exchanged in silence. Acts of love no one ever saw, except him. Each one fills a place at the table, not as shadows, but as previews. Even now, Jesus says the table remembers what it was made for. Some scholars describe the great banquet as symbolic an image of union between heaven and creation. But here it's personal. It's not about theology. It's about reunion. You ask softly, "Will you sit here too?" He nods, "I'll be at the head." Then he leans closer, voice even quieter. "But I'll also be beside you. In every story shared. In every wound remembered and healed. In every toast to grace that should have been impossible. A wind stirs not above, but from within the table. And the blossoms begin to rise, not flying, just floating, lifting gently as though welcoming someone home. You turn to him. "I didn't know Eden held this." He smiles. "It was never about returning to Eden." You frown, puzzled. "It was about Eden returning to you." You stare again at your seat. It no longer intimidates. It invites. Jesus gestures ahead. "There's one final walk," he says, "then you'll rest. And as you take your hand from the chair, you already know you'll return, not just here, but to yourself." The blossoms drift behind you like a soft farewell, not because something has ended, but because something has been given. Jesus walks beside you again, and the air is no longer Eden's breath alone. It's something fuller now, like heaven leaning close to listen. You're not sure where this final path leads, but you're not afraid. You walk through a stretch of open space, not empty, but uncluttered. The sky overhead isn't particularly bright, and the trees around you don't shimmer like before. This part of the garden feels almost ordinary. But you recognize the design now. When heaven draws near, it doesn't need spectacle. It simply is. Jesus gestures ahead. In the center of a quiet clearing is a bench. Just a bench. Worn, wooden, familiar, and next to it an old robe folded. You frown. "Is that yours?" He smiles gently. "One of them." He walks to the bench and sits. You follow slowly and join him. There are no visions here, no radiance, just quiet. And you realize this is the holiest moment yet. He doesn't speak for a while. The silence isn't awkward, it's sacred. Then finally he says, "This is the place where I rest after walking with someone." You look around, but there's nothing here. "Exactly," he says, "it's where we just are." You sit back, trying to hold the fullness of everything you've seen, heard, felt. But it slips through your fingers like sand too beautiful to keep. "I don't want to leave you," say quietly. "You won't," he replies. You glance at him. He smiles. "Not really. You'll wake. You'll return to your world. But what's been planted here," he taps your chest, "stays." You close your eyes. And in the stillness, Eden whispers something you never expected. You were never just visiting. You were remembering. This, Jesus says, was your garden too. Before the world taught you otherwise. You breathe slowly. "What do I do now?" He leans forward, resting his elbows on his knees. You live like you've been here. You walk through the noise with the quiet still in you. You speak the name not just with words, but with mercy. You forgive without needing applause. You look at others like I looked at you. You nod slowly, and you keep listening, he adds. "To what?" He smiles. "To the echo. Eden is closer than people think. Sometimes just one act of love away." The trees sway gently. You don't want this moment to end, but you also know it won't. It'll fold into your breathing, your remembering, your walking. You look up. He's not glowing, not rising, not disappearing. He's just here. And that is more than enough. You stand, so does he. You hug him not ceremonially, not as a farewell, just because you can. And he embraces you like someone who's never let go. You step back. And he says softly, "One more step." You glance at the path behind you. You glance at the path ahead. Then you close your eyes. And take it. You take the step, and when your foot lands, it's not on grass or stone or glowing soil. It's on light. Not blinding, not sharp. A path of light laid out like memory, soft and steady beneath your feet, as if woven from every moment you've trusted God without knowing it. Every time you chose to hope. Every time you chose to stay. Jesus walks behind you now. not because he's leaving you to go alone, but because this step is yours. You follow the path as it rises gently, no destination in sight, just an upward winding that feels like an exhale. And then the horizon opens. Before you, a wide expanse of water still as glass, but not reflecting the sky, reflecting the soul, not just yours, all of them. It's like seeing heaven's memory, every life, every sacrifice, every quiet kindness that shaped the world without recognition. Jesus steps beside you again, gazing out at it. This, he says, is what I see. You whisper it's beautiful. He nods, not because it's perfect, because it chose love anyway. You stand together in silence, and then across the waters you see them, figures, not approaching, just watching, smiling, waiting. Adam, Eve, Mary, Joseph. A thief, a child, a prophet who danced, a woman who wept, a doubter who stayed. Not saints in robes, family. And they see you, not for your achievements, not for your failings, but as one of them. Jesus speaks once more gently. You walked the garden with me, and now it walks with you. You inhale deeply. The scent of the garden still lingers on your spirit. The light hasn't dimmed. The peace hasn't faded. You are ready. You are loved. You are remembered. And somewhere deep inside you, you begin to dream again. So now, let the rhythm of this sacred journey drift through your chest like a gentle tide. Let the steps you took beside Jesus echo into your breathing, soft and sure. You walked through Eden tonight not as a visitor, but as someone who once belonged and always will. You saw the garden, remember his laughter, the trees reach for his voice, the earth rise to meet the grace in his footsteps. And you were part of it. Let the memory of the Lamb's song keep you warm now. Let the unfinished meadow remind you that prayers you once whispered still bloom in silence. Let the drawing in the dust remind you that you were never just made, you were authored. And let the table, the pool, the path that Adam never took remind you, you are not someone wandering lost. You are someone coming home. Your breath can slow now. Your body can soften. Your spirit can float back to rest. He has walked with you. He has called you by your truest name. And he will walk with you again. So close your eyes if you haven't already. Let the stillness settle. Let the soft hum of heaven take root in your heartbeat. And truly know, you are beloved. You are remembered. You are his. End of script. Sweet dreams.